Big update from today. Wait, big news. So you guys know those tariffs that we've discussed so much? Well, they got blocked. They got blocked by a judge. They were ruled illegal. The tariffs that have been terrorizing the world economy. And so we are in the middle of that being figured out, including Trump's counter response, and it'll probably end up at the Supreme Court. So I want to just talk a little bit about what happened. So you guys know the Constitution, right? You guys heard of that? Maybe if you're an American, maybe you've possibly heard of the Constitution. In the Constitution of the United States, there's a section here, Section 8, where it says the Congress, because they couldn't spell back then, are the ones that has the power to collect taxes, duties, and imports. Duties is also very funny. This is the words on the easier and cleaner to read website. Congress is the one that has the power to do taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, and to regulate commerce with foreign nations. So what I'm saying is, in our American Constitution, we make it very clear that the president does not have the power to do things like tariffs. It is only Congress. And so how was Trump able to unilaterally come out and declare massive tariffs on all of our trading partners? Well, there was a rule in 1977, Code 1701, that said when there is an unusual and extraordinary threat, a national emergency, then the president gets unique authorities. One of those unique authorities, that was Jar Jar Binks? Yeah, well, unusual and extraordinary threat, national emergency, made me think of...
Misa propose that the Senate give immediately emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor.
So if there's, a droid army descending upon the Republic, sometimes Jar Jar will step up and give the Emperor unique powers. But nobody has stepped up and given Trump the unique powers to tariff just yet. But he said that we are currently in a national emergency. So this rule applies. And he has the ability to, I'll shorten this, regulate imports. Whether this covers tariffs even is up for debate. This is really mostly about stopping enriched uranium from entering the country or something, but whatever. If there's an emergency, you can regulate imports. And so it's through this unique law, 1701, 1702, that Trump is saying we are in a national emergency. And what is that emergency? The emergency that Trump says we have is a large and persistent annual trade deficit. So because we buy more from other countries than they buy from us, that is a unusual and extraordinary threat, a national emergency. It's not even fentanyl. People think it's fentanyl. It's not. Fentanyl was for the Canadian and Mexican tariffs originally. But for all of these tariffs globally, including on countries that have nothing to do with fentanyl, it is just this general idea that we have a trade deficit, and that is an emergency. Now, it's funny because even the word persistent implies that it's not unusual. All of these trade deficits have existed for normal business goings-ons for decades, right? For decades and decades and decades. So it's weird to say no, this is so different and such an emergency and so unique that I need emergency chancellor powers to be able to single-handedly decide the tariff rate for all these different countries. And I like Matt Levine's way of phrasing it. The idea seems to be that the trade policy of every country in the world over the past several decades is somehow an unusual and extraordinary threat. This is a strange way to use words. How can every instance of trade with every country be unusual? How, after decades of trade deficits, is a trade deficit extraordinary? So this is a fair argument. It doesn't really make sense to have this power not be in Congress's hands. Now, I want to be clear that Congress is majority Republican. So theoretically, with the big beautiful bill, he could likely get whatever his ideas are passed. But it's this insistence of using emergency powers to get around all of the normal constitutional systems. So that was struck down today. It was struck down by a 3-judge court panel. The 3 judges appointed by Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama, and Trump himself. All 3 of them unanimously agreed that it does not meet the required test of being unusual and extraordinary. Even his own appointed judge agreed that there's nothing so wild or crazy about us buying more from Mexico or buying more from Australia than they do from us, or whatever example. So they shut it down. Peter Navarro, aka Ron Vara, who was the architect of Trump's trade plan, said this is no big deal and downplayed it. First of all, he said we have plenty of other options, and they do. There are other legal loopholes they can take to try to get these through. But in the short term, it's not going to matter because the tariffs have been, the tariff block has itself been blocked. On appeal, it has been blocked from being enforced until it gets to a higher court. So eventually, this is going to be a Supreme Court decision on whether Trump has the power to declare emergency and give himself emergency powers. That's where we're at right now. The tariffs are still sort of in effect, but it's weird because most of them are on pause. This is all like a debate back and forth over tariffs that are on pause anyway. But I will say that 2 months ago, we're in the middle of this whole tariff chaos. Trump's team said they'd have 90 deals in 90 days. We are now 60 days in and we have one deal. Exactly one deal, not even signed yet, between us and the UK. So it would honestly be good for him if it gets blocked. This would be for Trump's own polling and economic good. This is it's like actually secretly, if this gets blocked by a judge, he can get rid of all the terrible tariffs and be like, well, who knows what happened, the judge's fault. This is actually low-key good for him. The fact that he's fighting against it so hard is a inability to accept a gift horse. I thought this photo was so hard. All the ping pong balls whizzing past him. UK deal is old and fake, agreed 2 months ago. No, it's incorrect. No, there's new stuff. There's new stuff, bro. But the main new stuff, I included it here. The main new stuff is like advantages for the UK in selling cars in America and steel, which is why it's so funny. The UK is in a hurry to get this deal done. They are like trying to avoid all this court stuff and just get this sped up because it's actually to their advantage. Like this deal is not like an amazing deal for American workers. It's just lower tariffs on, UK cars and steel. So we find ourselves in an interesting spot is all I'm saying, where I don't think other countries are in any hurry to get any deals done, especially when now they can see that like there's a possibility the entire tariffs altogether will be struck down by the Supreme Court. So that just adds more time. That brings me to the second part, which is the taco trade. So Wall Street, in response to this and other things, actually not even just to this, just to Trump's general actions towards tariffs, which is like, I'm going to do 1,000,000% tariff. Well, I'm not going to do it. There's a pause. Or I'm going to do 50% tariff on EU, but we'll delay it by a month. Wall Street, which again, does not care about Trump's politics, if anything might be supportive, is just noticing that panicking over his tariffs and the damage they will do to the economy doesn't seem to work because they always get undone before they really roll out. It's a pump fake.
A new term called the taco trade.
So they're calling it taco trade for Trump always chickens out. Which is the idea that no matter what big number he announces, don't bet on that because it won't actually happen.
They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff. And they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And I said, okay, I'll give you till June 9. I actually asked them, I said, what's the date? Because they weren't willing to meet.
By the way, what he's saying is the reason. Yeah, that's that's why they say it. They say it because you say, I'm going to do a 50% tariff on Europe. And then later you announce, well, it's not going to, we're pushing it back 90 days. We're pushing it back a month. And then when we get to the end of that month, you're going to say something else. Or there's going to be, some symbolic deal, but that doesn't change anything materially. So that is why, yeah.
And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. We have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? 6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation, but don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question.
I just think that was funny. I think that was funny. It was a nasty question. Specifically on China, it has not been coherent, and they've clearly not backed down in any way. All that does is add to the general sense from markets and from other countries that giving in any way and negotiating is a losing position, that they should just ignore him because time will be on their side. And that time could be from him backing down and lowering the tariff. The time could be from the judges in America deciding he doesn't have the power to do this over Congress and getting rid of it. And the time could be from them finding deals somewhere else with China or someone else that improved their negotiating position. But the worst thing they can do is give in and negotiate with him. So he's set up a really bad spot. He set up a really bad spot to get any deals done, specifically 90 and 90 days. So I will follow up. I just wanted to sort of give that update. I want people to understand why he was able to do it before, why it was possibly blocked, what it means, why this is different, and why he's getting upset about it. Well, the funniest thing was a comment that was like, that question is going to get some poor country a 300% tariff. which I think is fucking true. Like, that might start the Great Depression, dude. Someone pushing his button to where he's got to feel tough about it is now gonna have, like, Japan or Nigeria or Australia. Somebody's getting a random major tariff just so he can show that it's serious business. He's gonna get one guide. He got rage baited. I'm heading to Italy this summer. Do you think the ruling on Trump's tariffs will help the strength of the dollar rebound across the world, especially in Europe? It's a good follow-up question. If you guys want to know, you can check the DXY. Just Google DXY. It's the US dollar index, and you can see roughly how strong the US is versus a basket of other currencies around the world. And you'll find, if you look at the DXY, that it is the lowest it's been in 3 years. I got 3 years on here, but it is the weakest it's been versus other currencies in 3 years, is where we're currently at. And that is because of a general and relatively muted, but general, slow-moving, iceberg slow diversification out of the US, out of US assets, out of US treasuries. What you're asking specifically is like Forex trading, which I'm not going to do. I don't know where the dollar is going to go in the short term, but I'll say the longer term direction of travel is looking more negative as people diversify from the risk premium that the US is now putting on. Some people call it the idiot premium. Some of us call it the chaos premium. You know, I'm reading a lot of different Substacks and news articles, but the idea is that, like, the uncertainty that's added to investment in the United States because of unstable leadership is causing a repricing. It's causing people to have to add an extra, couple percent to buying US specific things because there's more risk. So what that means in the short term, nobody knows, but I would say that it seems likely the dollar has further to depreciate.